I'd like to call this meeting of the RTM Parks and Recreation Committee to order on February 14th, 2024. It's 7:31, I'd say. For attendance, I'm going to go through. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, guys. Let's see what's going on here now. I just let two more people in, I think. Tony and there you are. Hey, Mary.
Hello.
Always glad to see you.
Likewise.
Really glad. Sorry, I didn't see you guys in the waiting room, but eventually I did. So, all right. Let's get started. We're just getting ready to get started, and I'm recording. So, attendance. So I'm going to go through who's here and who's not. Sarah Baldwin. Not yet. Patty Baumgardner.
Here.
Diane Conalog.
Here.
Cheryl Russell.
Here.
Penny Wilson. Carrie Cardone.
Here.
Adele Sue Ellen Mitchell.
Here. Here.
Kim Kiner.
Here.
Andy Millar. Sandy Savage.
Here.
Tony Lorino.
Here.
Melissa's not here. Susan Marks.
Here.
Mary.
Here.
Bill Van Loan.
Here.
David York. Okay, that's 12. All right, let's get started then. Approval of the minutes from December 5th and January 3rd. Do I have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I have a correction for the December 5th under monuments and ceremonies, where I was reporting. It should be wreaths across America, not race across America.
Okay.
Adele,
Although
Sarah Baldwin just texted that she's in the waiting room.
Thank you. I see her. Got her. Good. Thank you. And that's helpful. Anytime you get caught in the waiting room, anybody, just text somebody that's on and they'll pass it along in case I don't see them. Okay, there's Sarah. Okay, Sarah, we're just getting started. We just called the roll and I got you.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, and then approval of the minutes. And we just have one correction for December 5th. It's wreaths across America under monuments and ceremonies from Diane. Anything else? You may have a motion then to approve the 12-5 minutes as corrected and the 1-3 minutes.
Motion.
As Sandy moved,
second.
Carrie seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, thank you guys. Update on the Board of Selectmen approved 2024-25 Park and Rec operating and capital improvements budgets. There was no change to the programs fund. It was as we went over with Pam. In fact, there's very little change with this. Pam took us through everything in January and very little. Okay, it is. Let's see who this is.
Hi, it's Andy on dial-in.
I got you, Andy. Thanks.
Great.
We're just getting started. We are just going to go over the I'm just going to go over sort of a budget update, and then Cheryl and Patty have also been keeping up with the budget, so they can chime in if there's anything they want to say, or anybody has any questions too. But let me start with the operating budget. Just a couple of changes from what Pam told us in January, the full-time salary line under administration expenses was town administrator adjusted down $14,000. Sort of, I think it's a turnover allowance for Pam leaving. And then the travel line was adjusted up slightly, $200. The mileage reimbursement was increased. It must be an algorithm for that, you know. Beach and court facilities, the operating supplies were town administrator reduced by $600, and the explanation was just to offset increases in other areas. Grounds, fields, and buildings expenses. Under groundskeeping services, that's where the $45,000 asked for the commission for the second year of the Standards of Care initiative. Last year, the beautification funds were all allocated to the plantings and irrigation at Pear Tree Point. And the commission recognized the necessity of incorporating low maintenance plantings across the park, so asked for an increase of $27,000 in fiscal year 25. The town administrator reduced the request by $27,000. So the budget line remains $18,000 as it was in fiscal year 24. Facility repair maintenance. The concession equipment maintenance was town administrator reduced by $3,000. And the invasives removal plan request from the commission was $45,000, which was an increase of $30,000 from $15,000 in fiscal year 24. The town administrator reduced the request by $15,000, and the Board of Selectmen reduced the request by a further $5,000. So the budget line is $25,000 at this point.
But just to make a point, it's actually up $7,000 over what we received last year.
Right. It's up 10. I think.
It's up 7.
You think so?
Yep.
Okay.
Because it was 18. You said 15. It was 18 that we got last year.
It was 18 for the
It was 18.
other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got it out. I guess I got it out of the wording, but I'll double check it. It's no
big
problem.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not. You're right. So they didn't cut it all.
The good news is,
yeah.
you know, they were aggressive with their ask because there's a lot to tackle throughout town. But they were reducing and reducing. But then the selectmen said they value the work that's been done, and then they'll keep it at 25, which is that number of $7,000 up. Thanks.
Okay. The organized recreation events and expenses, no change. And then the recreation facilities maintenance expenses. The full-time salary line, this is the maintenance guys. The town administrator increased slightly, approximately $13,000. These things are like they went like this. You know, it was really hard to be exact for me anyway. The longevity increases offset by park maintenance position resignation, which will be filled by less expensive hires. So there were step increases, and then there was a resignation. So that tweaked that. And then the seasonal and temporary salary line, the town administrator reduced modestly, approximately $13,000. Park monitor budgeted elsewhere, plus hourly rate was adjusted. So the hourly rate she put in was a little higher than what the hourly rate was. So she adjusted it down because of that. So, and that is all that I have for the operating. Anybody have anything to add?
Nope, good job.
Okie doke. We'll move on to the capital improvements. At Cherry Lawn, the repaving of the Nature Center driveway stayed in at $275,000, and fixing of the rock foundation along the overflow parking. Man, I thought that moved to ARPA. Did it move to ARPA? No, it didn't.
No.
It just stayed in. Yes. Okay. The traffic study stayed in at $8,500, and then repairing the cracks on the basketball court was moved to the ARPA for ARPA funding. And you'll see that there are a couple of things that happened with. They are kind of, the Board of Selectmen seems intent on really making sure they spend all of the ARPA money. They don't want to be given any back to the federal government. And so that's part of it. So there were quite a few closeouts. I sent you guys the closeout sheet and where they moved things. And so that's what that's all about. And even to the point of talking about using taking the contingencies out of these projects and using all the dollars just to make sure they spent everything. But that they have to go to the ARPA committee and talk to them about that before that happens. Baker Park replaced the fence. That was moved to ARPA. That's $11,000. Holahan Field replaced the backstop. The town administrator did not fund it. Weed Beach, the security cameras, the town administrator did not fund it. Strip the paddle court paint, $20,000. That's still in. Replace the gatehouse for $50,000. That's still in. Repair the tennis wall and court, the backboard, and Board of Selectmen did not fund it. They said they needed more information. And the meadow and trail, the Board of Selectmen removed from the budget, awaiting bid results. Park and Rec equipment, small capital for $5,000 stayed in. Replace the 3 AEDs, for $6,000 is still there. Replace the 550 hook truck for $120,000, and the stand-on blower for $16,500. The town administrator removed, and the Board of Selectmen put back in. So, total $510,000 for capital improvements, and $33,000 were moved to ARPA for ARPA funding.
So Adele, when something like Meadows and Trails, they remove it awaiting bid results, does it have any chance of going back in, or it basically ends up next budget year?
That's a good question. I think it means that it might be brought back to the selectmen, but outside of the budget. That was my take on what they were saying. And they wanted specifics. Patty, you're shaking your head. What do you say?
I agree with what Adele's saying, is that they could, that's a good question. They could fund it off cycle. They just felt like there was a lot of information that still needed to be vetted further. Even though they'd done a lot of work, there was a big storm in September when we all got rained on, and there was a lot of flooding down there. And so I know there was a lot of neighbors that had concerns, that gave those concerns to the Board of Selectmen. So I think when they looked closer, their comments, as Adele knows, because we watched that meeting, their comments were, they had just finished going through Great Island and how very, very, very detailed that plan was, and that they felt like they needed more details for Weed Beach Meadow and Trail to really understand if those numbers were going to be accurate or not. So it wasn't that they don't think it's a good idea. It just feels like it needs more due diligence, particularly around the numbers.
Yeah. So they were waiting, they couldn't do anything about it, really, going for the bid to get the proper numbers until they got all the okays from the various boards. They got in January, they got the last okay from, I think, PNC. Yeah. Somebody else raised a hand, I think. Yes, no? Okay, so we'll see, Tony. We'll see. That's all I have on the budget. So if there aren't any more, just to say, just to remind you that now the selectmen have finished with their portion, they've got their budget set, and so now it goes to the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance will get it. I'm trying to think, I wrote it down somewhere, Adele. In March, and we'll begin reviewing it later in March. Our dates here somewhere. Right. March 5th, the Board of it's officially turned over to the Board of Finance, and then the public hearing, the Board of Finance's public hearing is on March 12th, And then the budget review starts, I think, on the 19th, the 20th, April 2nd, and the final vote will be on April 9th. So I think we have a meeting on the 10th, so we'll probably be able to vote on the 10th on the final budget. Okay.
April 10th?
Yeah. Yeah. But we got a ways to go before then.
Yep.
Yeah. Update on the Park and Rec Commission subcommittees and other town committees and commissions, if anybody has any updates. The Park and Rec Committee, the Park and Rec Commission sort of tweaked their subcommittees, and so they now include they changed the playground groups to a Baker playground group that's going to be led by
Janet.
Yeah, by Janet. Yeah, thank you, Janet Kling. The pickleball is being led by Jim Farrell, and then the invasives committee is led by Mary Louise. So I think we have people following some things, and then we have a budget committee, and Patty and I and Cheryl are the budget committee. Patty's on the invasives committee.
I can give an update on that, a quick one if you want.
Yeah, it's kind of all convoluted. Either you
Yeah.
do it now or do it later, so you might as well just do it now.
We had a meeting last Tuesday, February 6th, of the Invasives Committee. So that's the first one of 2024, led by Mary Louise Morgan. And there were one or two additional people on it. There's 2 to 3 master gardeners. Laura Mosher's on it. Joan Gabriel's on it. A new member, Mary Bloomer, who is who's I think on the exec board of the I always get the DCA and DAC mixed up. The one with the big
Arts Council?
house. Pardon me?
No, go ahead.
The one that does the garden and the plant sale.
DCA.
Yes, and Mary Bloomer's in charge of that, and so she's joined us. Chris Filmer was at the meeting; he's an advisor, and other folks as well. But just kind of cutting to the chase, Mary Louise reviewed what invasive work had been done in the past. And then what the plans were for planting wetland plants and native plants down along Cherry Lawn by the creek and the pond, and a little bit along the border where a number of the invasives were taken out. So it'll beautify everything. When you take out a lot, you have to do a replanting plan. And so she submitted that. And it had for $17,755 was the amount of money. So that fell in under the 18,000 mark, but in the end, because she had to submit that prior to the Board of Selectmen meeting, so it was nice that they gave us up to 25,000. But there's a very detailed list that I'm happy to send out at another point, or have Mary Louise send it to you, Adele, that's got exact listings of recommended new native plants that thrive in wetlands and in shaded area. And then the last thing I just wanted to say was that Chris Filmer is working with the invasives group. We're going to build a little, with the invasives, they've cleared out some of that area. So you now can see that beautiful stone bridge. When we did that walk, you can now see that stone bridge on the left-hand side of the pond. So we're going to do a wood chip kind of area in front of there where it's so wet to fill that in. And Chris is advising us on a lot of the natives and the wetlands plants. So that's really the update, all positive, good. And that work wouldn't come through, the planting wouldn't start to be done until the fall of 2024 and the spring of 2025, because it's in its capital budget items.
Okay. All right. So I interrupted myself, so I have to figure out. Okay. Does anybody else have any committee reports they want to give?
Adele, I can give a quick update on Coastal Advisory. So they met on Monday night and they had Dan Biggs and Lori Boer at the meeting, and there was a big discussion. Well, first of all, they didn't have a quorum at their meeting, so it was basically an unofficial meeting. But they were discussing the pear tree beach improvements, specifically the dredging. They're talking about dredging from the boat ramp around to the front of the boat club. And along those lines, the Board of Selectmen approved $26,000 for a dredging application and study. So it's in the works, but there was no, I don't think there was any timeline given to this. Like, oh, I shouldn't say that. There was not a specific time as to when this was going to be done. So that's still in the works. The harbor master did submit, I don't know if he submitted to, it wasn't clear whether he submitted to the Board of Selectmen or to Town Council revised harbor regulations, but no specific information was given at the meeting, no details. So I don't really know what's in there. There had been a lot of discussion at the commission meeting of possible changes, but the commission didn't get a copy of whatever the final was that he was giving to Town Council. I think it's going to have to go back quite a few times. And maybe that's why he didn't give the specifics. And then the Coastal Commission is starting to consider any input that they would need to give on Great Island or around Great Island. So that's kind of what's going on the Coastal Advisory.
Thank you. I know you, Susan is thinking that maybe someone else might want to follow these two committees. So if anybody else is interested, please let me know. Some volunteer. We also have,
Adele,
yes. Who's
can
talking?
I just chime in on that?
Okay, sure.
Susan just gave a very good report. I too was on that meeting. Where did my notes go?
Oh, okay. Then you know what, Cheryl? I did not watch the whole meeting entirety, so please give any other input.
No, I only stayed on. I just had it here. Where the hell did it go? There it is. Notes. I only stayed on to hear Dan Biggs and see what they were going to talk about as far as Pear Tree went, because I was on the building committee. And Mike Scrow was also in attendance of that meeting on Monday night. So I was just curious and plugged in. I thought it was very interesting. Dan basically gave them an update of how the permit process moves along, and CLP and DEP and Army Corps of Engineers, and how long it takes to get moving, and blah, 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 as we all know. And I thought the last thing that Dan did say that I thought was interesting was that he talked about the permit that we have now for Pear Tree. And he said, you know, the clock is ticking on this permit and it's going to run out in 2027. And he said the Army Corps and DEP are not too fond of renewing permits. So that's why I was involved. I was watching that meeting, and that's what I wanted to say to everybody, because it is extremely important that we get moving on the boat ramp and or the parking lot and do something down there. I'm extremely disappointed in this whole process right about now. So I
Do we have any control over that?
Excuse me?
Do we have any control over that though? In
Do
terms of-
we?
Yeah,
No.
No.
The Board of Selectmen, that came in, as we all know, at $6.6 million for the renovation of the boat ramp and the parking lot. I watched the Board of Selectmen meeting on our Park and Rec budget, and they didn't even discuss it. And apparently, Lori said that she's been talking to the Board of Selectmen and asked them to give her some sort of guidance in which way to go. and what they intend to do. And she said on Monday night that she hasn't gotten any word from them. So it, I know it's going to be bonded. It's not going to be a budget item, but somebody needs to sit down and talk about this. And the other thing I was disappointed in hearing on the budget process was that the Holohan Field, a backstop got cut. And that's too bad because they said Kate said it was a safety issue. It's not only a safety issue. And I wrote John a note and Kate and said it wasn't just a safety issue. It was a game changing issue. So, yeah, I've been kind of sort of listening in on some of this stuff, but I'm extremely disappointed over Pear Tree. Extremely. So yeah, Susan, you did, you said it as it was. I just wanted to add in 2 cents. Thank you, Adele.
And the other thing I did hear, maybe this was at a board of, I guess it was a budget. I've gone all these meetings back. I kind of do too. When Kate was talking about the dredging to the Board of Selectmen, if I'm not mistaken, she said it wasn't a environmental issue. But I think that was the word. I apologize for not being specific. But the problem's going to be if we don't dredge, it will become a huge issue. It's not going to get any better. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So, but they have to be committed to want to do it. And there was conversation, well, not everybody boats in the town. Well, that could be, it's still a town asset. So that will be up to them to discuss, certainly with input, but they're going to have to make those decisions.
It's a huge town asset. It's huge. This was a gift to the town. And if we can't maintain it and take care of it, why should we even have it anymore?
Well, and also Cheryl, I think they dredged in 2001. That was the last time they dredged.
Yes.
From what I heard. Okay.
Yep.
Well, we all know that the back beach is sitting out in the channel somewhere since it got washed out with the flood coming down Goodwives River and that big storm we had. So anyway.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. They mentioned that.
Yeah.
The other night too.
For sure.
So can we just try to keep it on the agenda? Like I'm wondering what we can actually do to impact this and move it forward.
We can vote no for the budget and send a message that way that if we don't have something in there that we can be proud of and support, otherwise we vote no. I don't know.
Cheryl,
Yes, dear.
is the raising of the parking lot and the ramp tied together?
As far as I know, I haven't heard Kate say what the cost for one and the other would be.
Oh, they're not, the 6 million isn't for raising the parking.
It's for both. It's for both.
Let me ask you, if you raise the parking lot and you do not raise the road that gets you to the parking lot, what's the sense?
I have no idea.
Wait,
because
Bill,
the road will flood and you still can't get to the parking lot.
I think it's one is a limiting factor of how much you could raise the parking lot.
I agree.
The road is, but it doesn't mean that you're getting into the weeds, Bill. It doesn't mean that raising the parking lot wouldn't help. That you can make a difference with raising it with what the plan is. So anyway.
Okay.
That was the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. I think I think what we'll see, or the Board of Selectmen will do something about, I think the 27,500 it was for testing, and I wrote it down.
Excuse me, but
We'll see that. We'll hear about that. We'll hear about that again.
Here we are going for more money to do a different project and not do the project that's on the table.
Okay, well, this is just for the survey and the test for the boat channel. So I think it's just It's not the part that they did tested before. It's farther up in the boat channel. I mean, in
Right.
the
It's
channel.
around in the front of it's the harbor.
Yes,
around
exactly.
the
It's the harbor.
It's at the end of the, what is that?
All I know is that they said
A
it's
ramp or something straight out. I can't remember. I was on it for 100 years.
east of the gas pump. That's all
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got.
To the gas pumps.
Part they tested before was more inland towards or by the docks or in front
Yes,
of.
and
No.
around the curve, yeah. And this is
Right.
farther up, so I
Now
don't think
we're going to test more, but not do anything about it. Is that what we're hearing?
Well, I think it makes sense to test. You guys know Cheryl and Adele have followed this for a lot longer than I have, but I think if you're going to do any dredging, you're going to do it once and you're going to do the whole thing. So they have to figure out how much, it makes sense to do the testing, I think, because you're not going to want to do this again, and you're going to want to make sure it's a complete study. So I think that's why the additional study is needed. And the big thing will be depending on if the water or the soil, I should say, or the sediment is clean or if it's contaminated, that will have a big difference on the price of the dredging.
Right.
So
How long ago did we
more.
do these testing around? Like 2 years ago, was it?
when we got the permit, it was before we got the permit, so it's all part of that process, so
When was that?
5 years.
I think
22?
2018.
Is that far?
Yeah, sorry for my being. I think it was 2018.
Okay, I'm not
So,
sure.
At this point, could the first study be inaccurate now because so much has probably changed under the water since that? Like,
So I did ask that question, and they had surveyed 6 areas, and 5 of them were contaminated and 1 was clean. So, certainly the contamination's not going to change. If anything, I don't know about the clean part, if it could go to the contaminated, but basically the majority of it's contaminated. So
they don't need to test it again then.
Probably not.
No.
Yeah, it seemed to me, as I recall, it had to do with how much water flow they got that clean, it cleans itself, and the farther back and the closer to the ramp, the less the water flow was. Anyway, we'll move on, folks. I know. What else? So we have a couple other, there's now a pickleball, like I said a few minutes ago, pickleball subcommittee for the commission. So I think we probably do need somebody that probably should follow that. We don't seem to be being invited to be on these committees. So other than Patty being on invasives, but I think we probably should still be following them. So we need somebody probably to follow the pickleball, and we need somebody to follow the Baker Playground as well. So think about it, everybody, and send me a text or an email if you're interested.
Jim Farrell had a pickleball committee meeting today.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Where they were discussing what peer towns were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were discussing a possible program in conjunction with Pickleball America and their 13 courts, potentially 26, but 13 courts, and the ability to do some lessons over there, some discounts for our Darien residents, whether they want to become a member and you get a discount, or whether you just want to be able to play there and get a discount. But I think Jim was doing a great job of really trying to find solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know he was looking into, I guess there's these tiles that you can put down on a paddle court. He was looking into that to see it. It was an expense, but it might work. So. I
did go to their first meeting a month ago when they talked about that, and I was unable to go today. So we'll see. Yes, he is trying to do this, and he's trying to get it done as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens.
Okey doke. I think that's it. Meanwhile, we sort of keep paying attention with the monuments and ceremonies and with beautification about as they go through their budget process. So we're watching that. We are not ready to report on it, but we're keeping an eye out on their budgets. I think that's that. Let me see what's left of my chairman's report. I think we've talked about most of it. Aren't you glad? We haven't talked about Great Island, so I think everybody heard, about the driveway, the entry driveway expansion, and it's winding its way through the town board approval process. It looks nice. Also, on March 1st, I think you probably all read in the paper that the Great Island will open to pedestrian traffic only, sunrise to sunset, paved surfaces only, no parking, no bathrooms. So you can walk in, you probably got to park down at Pear Tree, and there'll be no parking signs all along the other roads in the area. So Pear Tree, or I don't know, should I say the church up off of, I won't say that out loud. So anyway, Pear Tree it is, where you can probably park, but no bikes, just walk, stay on the road.
And dogs.
No dogs, that's it. Not for now. These are just the beginning rules. This is not cast in stone. I'm sure it'll change. And when they start working on the driveway, which they hope to do in April, then it will be weekends only. So they won't be able to get in while they're under construction.
But Adele,
Yep.
when I wrote to John, I mentioned to him, and I didn't watch the last Board of Selectmen meeting. Did they ever mention that people that want to come to Great Island are welcome and they can park at Pear Tree, but after May 31st, they all need to pay to get into the parking lot or to have a town beach sticker?
That was not discussed.
Yeah, no, they didn't talk about it, but that is the case, yes.
Yeah,
Good
so
point.
Does anybody want to say something? No? Okay.
Adele, wasn't this proposal only to April while the town is doing the road? After
No.
that, there's going to be a whole new set of rules and conditions.
Well, I
It'll
think
take them a while, though.
it'll take them a while, yeah,
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, so I mean,
But I do, to Bill's point, it was X number of months. It wasn't like it was going to be a year.
That was
right, it was
only-
like July 1, wasn't it? I mean, I think,
Right. I feel like it
Yes.
was July,
yeah, I think so
But what
too.
was
March to July.
What happened April 1st, though? I thought they were saying this was only gonna happen a month, and then they weren't gonna do it anymore. 'Cause the way
I think they expect the constructions to start in April.
right,
so-
so they're really
okay.
opening it up for a month.
I know, but it will be open weekends.
The weekends.
Once they start construction, but yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying.
But they're going to have heavy machinery, Kim, in there going in and out and widening that spot.
Right.
So, it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
Right, no, I understand. I just didn't even know why they're bothering to do this for
They're
1 month.
trying to let people get a feel for, I mean, we've been fortunate enough to be given a tour, because we're on Parks and Rec, but so many people haven't been on the property. And so I think they just feel like, yeah, we paid a good amount of money. Let's get people on it so they can really see the tree canopy and everything that's on there and appreciate it and look forward to what's coming.
Yeah, no, that's what I figured. It seems kind of like,
I know.
Band-Aid,
Yeah, but the best they could do, the best they could do.
Tipping the toe in the water.
Yeah.
Who's gonna supervise to make sure there are no dogs? I mean, I can see them going right on with dogs because they come up to the high school with dogs.
They said that the police will enforce, because they will also enforce not, bicycles. Like there was somebody on rules with us on Monday and said, you can't even bring a bicycle. And I understood her point, but they said they want everyone to stay on the hardcore surface also. So they don't want you going down necessarily down to the beach or walking into the leasees residence area. So right now it's a slow rollout.
We'll see how many rules people break, I suspect.
Yes, but they did say that the police would be
Yes.
enforcing whatever the rules are for the time being.
Yes, I don't know why dogs would keep you on or off the path. So it just seems completely
think it's-
unnecessary.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's more with they were worried maybe a little bit about the Eagles. I think they got to figure out how with the, how
We got
to
flying
do
dogs in
these
this
things.
town.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Hey, I have maybe a rabble-rousing question. Why does this committee have no jurisdiction over what will become the biggest park in this town? And why is even the RTM representative on the Great Island Commission not even a member of this committee?
He's a member, he chairs Public Works.
I understand.
I get you.
This
You
is
have
a
a good
park.
point.
It's going to be a park, right? I know that there's lots of rules about what it is or isn't a park, but let's be honest, it's a park. It will be a
But-
park. I mean, so I
Well,
guess
it's
I'm
open
asking,
space.
it's a
Tony-
rhetorical question, maybe to ask how people feel about that and how people see that changing.
Well, I do get asked that a lot, to be honest. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, it's instead of looking at a park, it's open space as well as a park. And I think, although I have no authority on this, so once land in town is designated parklands, then yes, Parks and Rec has total control over it. And I would think the theory would be to give this amount of acreage over to Parks and Rec really might tie the hands of the town for things they may or may not want to do. If you keep it as town controlled property, then there could be many other alternatives that are done. And I have no idea what those things might be, but I think it gives the town more options. But because once it's controlled by Parks and Rec, the town has very little jurisdiction over what goes there. The taxpayers would,
Right.
but the town itself doesn't. That would be my opinion, but you guys on here might have a very different outlook. And I think when we chose a representative on the RTM, I think all of us can change committees at times. And so I think it was most important to nominate the person that we felt could represent the RTM and report back to us versus giving input on the committee specifically to Parks and Rec. That's my 2 cents.
At least the chairman of the Parks and Rec Commission is on the Great Island Committee. So
Right.
that's a good thing.
And
The
the
other-
one other thing about, and I agree with everything Susan said. The other thing was with Mark Adaletta, because so much of the work in the beginning that needed to be done was infrastructure work. It was widening this road. It was environmental work. It was laying, pipes, whatever it needed to do. And he has been the chair of that for a very long time prior. He was on FMB for a while and then he's back on that. And he has worked very closely with Ed. So he made great sense. I think that's a fair question, but to Adele's point, the fact that Lori, who's chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, is on there, she's our liaison, so to speak.
The other thing I just thought of is, if you remember, when they put this committee together, they said it may or may not change, but this was just the first committee to get things rolling. This was not going to be the long-term committee. Now, not to say that some of these members won't stay on long-term, but if people feel that someone either from our committee or more people that deal, more people from the Parks and Rec Commission, that would be something that we could certainly have input to. But this was only phase one, and it sounded like there were going to be other phases.
Yeah, there are. They have expanded their charge, but yes, it is just the beginning. But you make a good point, Tony.
Well, I mean, I think it sounds like this group is going to program what will be a park. I guess I'm not really seeing the distinctions being drawn. They sound more political than reality. People in town are going to think of this as a park. Looks like a park, talks like a park, walks like a park, right? And I feel it's going to get programmed and decisions are going to be made and then handed off to this group to basically administer. Meanwhile, this group represents people in town that are interested in parks. And yet going through public works, people who do roads.
Excuse me.
So I'm being deliberately provocative. And by the way, this is not
Yes.
on Mark Adaletta, but my point is it just seems like this is being sort of held at bay from this group, from parks, et cetera, while decisions are made without, the input of people perhaps most concerned about the issues.
Also, isn't the Ox Ridge area in the same situation?
It's absolutely in the same situation.
Yeah,
I've had
and do you
people
have a
comment to
problem
me
with
that
that?
that is the biggest waste of land in Darien, and say, how in the world do we have a park with nothing in it, with people walking around in a circle?
Well, that's the
it's
point.
I
You
don't know.
think
I'm on
it's
the
a
Parks Commission,
waste.
committee, but I have actually no remit over this beautiful piece of land that, again, to most people looks like a park, but apparently isn't.
Well,
It is
why
used-
isn't it a
used
park
some.
to you?
No, that's my point. I believe politically speaking, it's not a park.
Not
It's right, Susan? I
politically.
believe
What
it's
is
open
it?
space,
What
correct?
is it that you want done to the Ox Ridge area that hasn't been done to your satisfaction?
I've had people express to me that the town bought the land, has left it completely open, and it is, from their perspective, not of a lot of use. And when you walk around, there's just people walking around in a circle. There's no landscaping,
Okay.
no grass, etc.
Name me
This wasn't my
uses.
opinion. I'm just reflecting what people have said to me.
Mhm.
And what I find interesting as a member of this committee when they say that is, oddly, that piece of land, its programming, which again looks like a park, talks like a park, etc., is not a park.
Okay, what 3 items would you suggest be put there?
I don't have any, nor do I think I need to. The issue I'm raising is that people in town look at that parcel of land like I think they will look at Great Island and say, looks like a park. It's meant to be a park.
I mean, Disneyland's a park, and so is Playland, and
Right.
that isn't quite what the intention was.
Okay, guys.
Well, I don't know what the intention was, but my only
Well, then
point is
you-
more administrative, which
Okay.
is why is this? I guess as a group that is concerned about parks and about recreation and use of land for those purposes, you do have a parcel like Ox Ridge that is completely outside of our jurisdiction, and it seems like people are okay with that. And I guess I just wonder why.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
Madam
Okay.
Chairman,
Okay, guys,
Andy.
let's stop here right now, okay? I'm gonna
Adele,
finish up.
Adele,
Yes.
Adele,
Yes.
Adele, it's Andy. Could I make a brief response to
Okay,
that
Andy.
question? I'm not quite sure who was asking the question, but one
Tony.
of the things that you might want to tell your voters is that part of the deal when the town bought that property was a 30-year agreement to let the Hunt Club use that land for their horse shows. So that kind of limits what can be done to it for 30 years.
That's true. Thank you for reminding us, Andy. That's quite correct. And the Parks and Rec Department does do some programming there. I believe they're going to do a little bit more programming there this year because I think they're trying to ease the burden on Cherry Lawn a little bit because it's a little overused. So, but that's a very valid point. Let me get back to finishing my Great Island, guys. But I appreciate you saying that, Tony. I appreciate the sentiment.
Well, another
let me
sentiment
finish,
is
guys.
that, no, please, one
Okay,
more
go ahead.
statement, please.
Okay.
That the neighbors are adamant about not having much activity at that point.
Yeah, just to be clear, my point is not about the specific use of the land, because I honestly don't have opinions as to it. I just passed along a comment made to me, but it put me in the position as a member of this committee of saying, that's kind of interesting. I'm a member of an RTM subcommittee on parks, and we have nothing to say about it because apparently it's not a park. And it's interesting to me listening to the group and maybe because people have been longer, they're sort of accepting the way things work, but it's a strange, I'm asking a jurisdictional question, not a programming question. I have a view to programming. That's all.
It also is not dedicated parkland.
Well, that's his point. He thinks that perhaps it should be.
It's
Yes.
deliberately not.
Yeah, and exactly, it's deliberately not, yeah. So in case the town needs it for a different use down the road, then they can do it. If you're designated a designated parkland, then you can't do other things on that land without replacing that amount of parkland elsewhere in the town. Okay.
With
So
like with like kind.
Yes, yes.
The
So-
other thing, I know Adele wants to move along, and I'll just say one more thing.
Okay,
So Tony, just remember, this committee that we have tonight, we don't have a lot of jurisdiction even over the parklands. Let's just be clear that the Parks and Rec Commission sets the policy and the department carries out the policy. And yes, we stay in the loop, we advise, we do all this stuff, we follow it. But if we say we want 10 tennis courts on X property, that's our opinion. And so when you say jurisdiction, I would just caution you to
Yeah,
say
maybe it's not the right word. Yeah.
we technically have no jurisdiction even over.
gotcha. Okey doke. Just one last thing important that has sort of happened at Great Island. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Mhm.
Because Susan's sound went sort of there at the end. Is that the stables we're going to see in the RTM, we're going to see the leases being extended, that we did last year for the folks that are living on Great Island. And they're going to try to get them all so that they end on July 1, 2025. But in that process, Serenity Stables is not renewing their lease, so they will be gone as of March 1st. So what that sort of does, the selectmen have been talking about it. What that does is it kind of, the revenue that they've been bringing in has been paying for the maintenance on Great Island, so now it won't cover it. And so that part of the budget, we had to move some money in next year's budget, put some money in to the budget to cover those expenses. So that, I think that might be where there's some cuts somewhere else. That might be a little bit of the reason why. So it was $225,000 that probably will need to be moved. And don't hold me to the exact number because I'm not sure, but to the Great Island account for next year. So that's all my information on Great Island. So I'm sure we'll be talking about Great Island lots more, guys, lots more. For the little bit left of the news from the commission was, let me see, the big fundraiser for the walkway terrace at Cherry Lawn between the two playgrounds was approved by the commission. And I assume that'll be getting underway in the next month or two. And I think Patty just told you about Chris Filmer gave a report to our presentation to the commission at their last meeting. And it was on what Patty was talking about with the invasives, with the creek and the walking paths and Stone Bridge and the island, et cetera, and the plantings that will go in, or that we hope to will go in. They also reviewed and discussed and updated the Cherry Lawn Gardeners rules, people who have plots there and what you can and can't do, and tidied that up a bit. They also
No high rises. No high rises.
No high
Two
rise.
people, just to make you guys giggle and laugh after some of this meeting. There were two people who had come in that were newer, and they had put in high rises in the garden, and there was a lot of pushback, and so that kind of helped them decide that they needed to have stronger rules and regulations.
There you go. There were some ARPA updates in the last, I explained the ARPA things that moved into ARPA. And you guys got that information. So, you saw the director's report from the last Park and Rec Commission meeting. I think the $500 gallon water tank has been ordered, and the 3 trailers are supposed to be ordered by Public Works. And I don't know if that's happened yet. And the brush cutter certainly has arrived and they've used it. So the paddle tennis court, they have all the approvals now, and they should be working on that as soon as weather permits, I think. And that's it for that. As you know, Pam told us at our last meeting that she was leaving, and her last day was January 18th. So just wanted to update you that at the Board of Selectmen meeting on the 5th, they said, Kate Bush said that the department had received 13 applications. So they will be working their way through those and interviews, et cetera, in the future. Jim Coglin's the interim director. He's been our interim director before Pam came, he was the interim director. And then the last bit of news is that Susan Daly has announced that she will be stepping down from the commission. She'll probably be around for a few more months to help with the transition period, but that's what her plan. And that's it. Does anybody have any other business that we need to talk about? In that case, I'll take a motion to adjourn. It's
So moved.
8:25. Not bad, guys. Not bad at all. And we will see you next month.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to all.
Thank
That
you.
was
Thank
amazing.
you.
everyone.
Thanks
Happy
a lot.
Valentine's
Bye-bye.
Day, everybody.
I'm sorry, guys. Happy Valentine's Day. Sorry to have done this to you. If it wasn't a school vacation next week, I wouldn't have done it. Bye.
All good.
Good night.
Bye.